Welcome back to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm Robb and we're on location in Penticton with Chris Featherson, the driving key force behind the Flannel Contract. How are you, brother?
I'm so good, Rob. Thanks for coming. Welcome to my basement.
Thank you for having
I'm
us.
very excited to get to sit down and chat with you.
I'm very excited. So let's hop right into it. Let everyone know who you are, where you're from, and how you became a musician.
Well, today I'm Chris from Earth. I grew up in a small town called Huntsville, Ontario. Went to Ottawa shortly after that and moved to the Okanagan about 6 years ago.
Crazy. You've only been here for 6 years?
It feels like less, but when I do the math, it's about 6 years, yeah.
Wow, I didn't actually realize you're from Ontario. How long have you been, what got you into basically being a musician? Like, how did you start?
Well, I owe my parents a huge shout out for that one. They got me in piano lessons when I was pretty young, and I stuck with that until I realized piano wasn't very cool. And at that point, I started picking up this old guitar that my brother never played. It was about high school by the time I started picking up the guitar, and it was about the size I am now, playing this child-sized acoustic guitar, and it looked hilarious for about a year when my parents thought, if he's going to play this tiny, ridiculous guitar for an entire year, we better stop pushing him towards the piano and just let him do what he's doing. They ended up buying me an electric guitar for Christmas after I'd spent a year with that acoustic, and it just kind of took off from there. Started making music with bands in high school. My high school had an incredible music program with really inspiring teachers who have always stayed in the back of my mind, and incredible opportunities with coffee shops and jam nights that the school was sort of putting on. So started a little high school band, moved away to Ottawa where I attended university and played in the punk scene there with a couple of different bands, and then moved to the Okanagan where top priority was forming yet another band.
Love it. How was the Ontario scene? Like, especially the punk scene. I know the metal scene's really good, but I've never actually heard anything about their punk scene.
The punk scene in Ottawa was a little slow. Certainly not a thriving demand for it. The Ottawa scene was a little bit more into the blues with a lot of the kind of government older crowd that lived there. A lot of people working for the country. But then there was also, between the two universities, a very sort of energetic young population of students. So the punk scenes and the metal scenes did fairly well out there. It was never hard finding bands and never hard booking shows. Now, just like any other scene, there was a few shows midweek to an empty bar where you're playing for drink tickets and, nothing else, but it's all part of the process.
Yeah, it is. So coming to the Okanagan, how was your first, going from the East Coast where the music scene is massive and there are tons of competition to the West Coast where there's like a very small competition base within the Okanagan itself?
Definitely a different vibe, especially moving to the Okanagan from Ottawa. You're going from this city center where you're playing music every night of the week to the Okanagan and Penticton specifically. You're not really playing unless it's a Friday or a Saturday night. You're really having trouble selling those midweek shows. So it's a lot of a different speed from the city scene to the West Coast scene. But one of the biggest differences is the Ottawa scene, particular the Ontario scene, is incredibly seasonal because it's so hard to tour, to play, to do anything through the winter. Everyone's got 3 feet of snow at the end of their driveway. They're not digging themselves out to go to a bar in the middle of the week, maybe even not on a Friday night. It's just cold and dark through the whole winter. So in the Okanagan, you see a little bit more of a steady season through the winter, with the mountains bringing a lot of those ski folks to town. Still a little bit slow as Penticton drops off January, February, but it's a lot nicer working through the winter on the West Coast.
Fair enough. That's I could definitely see that being a main factor in changing the dynamic change and it being a lot easier here versus that with the snow in the winter. I didn't I really put two and two together about how much snow they actually get on the East Coast. So
It is overwhelming at times, and the driving factor to leaving that city and coming out west.
yeah, is that what kind of gave you? Is that why you started hosting shows here yourself? Is just you saw the way the scene was here and decided I want to do it my own way?
There was certainly part of it, wanting to have more of an influence on that scene. You know, when you're at the mercy of whatever bar or booker you can find, you're getting what you get. But as more of a driving member of the community and the local scene, it really helps us to book shows on our terms. But it was more of an accident falling into place. I didn't intentionally set out to become a key part of the local scene. I didn't intend to become a booker promoter. It really just fell into place as we were playing this local dive, Clancy's, all the time, and we loved Clancy's. They treated us so well, but they didn't really have the know-how behind putting on shows.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were always dealing with this one waitress. Shout out to Vic, the machine. She was incredibly helpful to the Flannel Contract getting started in Penticton and giving us that platform. And the Flannel Contract brought this level of professionalism and of experience and knowledge about putting on shows that she wasn't really getting from other bands. So I was getting a lot of calls when Victoria was booking these other shows saying, "Hey, Chris, I've got this other band coming. They're asking me these questions I don't really know. Can you kind of help translate? Can you act as this middleman?" And I started acting as this middleman, helping Victoria communicate with the bands. And eventually, Victoria moved on to other stuff. She's moved out to Vancouver Island now, leaving this vacancy at Clancy's in the sort of booking side of things. Mm-hmm. And so it moved from just being this middleman to taking on more of the responsibility from Vic around booking. And then once she left, I stepped right in and don't bartend at Clancy's or anything like that. I strictly work with them in the booking scene. And that kind of grew to working with other venues and trying to set up bands and shows now that I've got this incredible network at different spots. I get bands reaching out to me saying, "Hey, I hear you're the guy in Penticton. We'd love to come play," but they don't really have the Clancy's sort of vibe. So I'm trying to redirect to other venues, put them in touch with other people in the scene. And it really just accidentally fell into place, but has been an incredible aid to the band. And now that I've got the network, more know-how, it's really just helping out the band by accident. A lot of the scene, as Penticton was before either Kynan or I got here. But we've got Harley behind the drums, who was born and raised in Penticton, was part of the original scene so many years ago with the formation of Hardball before their hiatus. Hearing all of these stories about what Penticton was and what the music scene was, and another name that was huge in the Penticton scene of Rob McLaren, putting on all these shows at the library so they could be all ages. And hearing all these stories about what the Penticton scene used to be, it just helps me to keep working towards building it up again. Knowing where it's been, to know what we can work towards, and to hear people from the original scene saying, it's really cool to see it build back up again. That's what I'm doing it for, is the people, the community that need this scene.
It's funny that you mentioned the library shows. I think the first show I ever booked was with Dave Mai's band called Ruckus. And it was a emo punk cover band. We did some originals, but we booked Bleeding Alarm, Push for Protection, and Us at the library. And that is the day I met JP and the Pasties started. It was me performing on stage at the library, and I put the mic to his face and he sang the lyrics, and it was like, "You're my new best friend." And
he's in.
Like 20 years later or whatever, we're still best friends. And it's just like, those were the days. And those, like, the turnouts that we used to have were insane, dude. Like, I get goosebumps thinking about the Kelowna shows back in the day for Stutterfly, when you have like 200 kids at a church, and they're all moshing, all of them, like
Just packed
just
in there.
throwing elbows and fists just to stutterfly, like these nobodies. And then all of a sudden they blew up, and it was like, that was really when like Hanio, DFY, Push for Protection, those are the founding members. Hardball, Karma Black, like that is Penticton's backbone for the music scene. Like, and that was me growing up 10 years old watching them, to opening up for them, to them coming to our shows, to having them open up for me, is a really weird turn of events. But it's like, to see the old groups even coming back, which is a new thing. At Times of Madness, one of Okanagan's best bands, just saw that they're coming back. The music scene, I think, is, especially Penticton, because I get contacted quite a bit about Penticton, and I usually send them to you, because I'm not a booker anymore. I enjoy doing it sometimes, but I'm not going to do it all the time. So you are my go-to guy for Penticton when my friends contact me and ask. So it's cool to see that there's a lot of bands coming through, and bands that I haven't seen their name in years.
So many bands. It's so beautiful to see the scene, such a living, breathing, evolving community of bands that form and hiatus and reform, and then these musicians join those musicians to form new projects,
super groups.
And it's such a, Penticton especially, you get this, I think, more a sense of it on the West Coast than I ever did on the East Coast, of such a supportive scene. And there's hardly ever any bad blood of, oh, well, I was in this band before and I'm not in this band anymore, and so we're not doing with that band anymore. I don't think I've ever seen bands in the West Coast really have bad blood because of past experiences, and it's always just such a supportive, and I don't care who played with who when, it's all about supporting each other and just building each other up in the community.
Yeah, I can personally say, I think out of the hundreds and hundreds of musicians that I've met, there's only ever been one in the entire scene in the Okanagan who I was like, that guy's a little high on himself, and he's just kind of needs to tone it down a bit. But realistically, everyone is extremely humble and wants the same thing. And that is to see the music scene in Penticton and the Okanagan be something that people want to come to. And that was one thing I really wanted to do with the festival, was bring those Vancouver groups here and show them what we do. And we scared them. Like, Penticton is known for throwing down now, which is amazing, because like, the bands do, the fans do, and the venues do. We need the town to be more supportive of the fact that it does have a very vibrant, heavy scene, and to embrace that and stop pushing it to the side for cover bands and single acoustic artists. Yes, we have amazing acoustic artists and bands from Penticton and the Okanagan, but the most famous bands that have ever made it out of the Okanagan are all in the heavy scene. Every single one of them is from heavy. And you have Excision from Kelowna, okay? The biggest DJ on the planet. I'm going to say that openly. Like, everyone knows who Excision is. The dude's from Rutland. Heaviest music possible. Like, the community there didn't even accept him.
Right?
He got huge, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, Excision, that's Excision.
And now they're all excited about it.
No one cared until it was too late. You ever seen them play in Kelowna?
Not anymore.
Nope.
Not anymore.
You won't. And that's because the scene probably doesn't support them. In the long run, they're not going to come back and support their town. So for me, with Kelowna being, or Penticton being, the event center has taken over Prospera. Prospera doesn't get as many big shows as they used to. The event center now gets them. Embrace your local scene, because you never know when they're going to be playing the event center, and you're going to be regretting not letting them play at your little bar.
That's right.
Because there's amazing talent hidden here. Amazing talent that just never gets, it just pushed to the wayside because, oh, it's heavy and that's not our crowd. Make it your crowd. How many more brewers do we need? How many more wineries do we need? We don't need 10,000 breweries and 10,000 wineries. We need some venues more like the Dream Cafe who are going to allow us. We need more Clancy's. We need more Brit bars. You know what I mean? Like, we need let the music happen.
Exactly.
Don't have like that stipulation of, well, we only play this on certain days.
I've seen a lot more breweries close their doors in the last 5 years of being in Penticton than I have seen bars that are putting on live music. New music venues are opening up, seemingly incredibly successful, when breweries across the street are closing their doors.
Can only drink so much
SOEC's
beer.
putting on huge metal shows.
Mhm.
Lamb of God came through recently. Alice Cooper loves to come to Penticton, yet it's hard for metal bands, for punk bands, for hardcore bands to get a platform here.
Mhm.
And especially, you were talking about the city needs to not shy away from this and to provide more opportunities. And specifically, I think we don't really have spaces for young people. We're watching malls all close their doors. People need third spaces, especially young people. Not just young people, but people need somewhere to go after work. And
Yep.
you can't just walk past the canning facilities. You need to
Get in there.
have somewhere to be, something to do.
I'm curious what they would do with Shadford buildings, because I know that they were using those as art spaces for people who are doing woodworking and pottery at one point, and then I know that shut down, but it'd be cool to see them bring that back, because that was a really cool aspect, and then have venues in there. So to get back on point with the fundraisers, because you mentioned the fundraiser.
That's right. I'll have to talk about the
And
fundraisers.
I want to dive into those, because that's one of the main things about you and the community, is that you not only host shows for the community and to constantly bring people in to make Penticton a better place, but you also have put on a fundraiser for 4 or 5 years now.
4 years now. We've had 4 annual fundraisers. This year's going to be the 5th.
Why don't you let us know what it's for and what made you inspired to help the Foundry?
Yeah, of course. What made us help the Foundry specifically? We were just talking about third spaces, how especially young people need somewhere to go. And the Foundry is a bit of that. It's a drop-in center where people can hang out after school. But not only is it a drop-in center, the Foundry provides tons of resources for these young people. The Foundry does mental health support, physical health support if these young people need help getting in touch with doctors and prescriptions and stuff like that. And so third spaces are very important to me in the community, and I know the community needs stuff like this. So when we started to talk about the fundraiser, and I had heard about this place, the Foundry, it seemed like a no-brainer to me. I remember going to a drop-in center after high school. Growing up, it was just sort of down the street. My folks usually worked late, so I knew that there wasn't going to be anybody at home. So oftentimes I would just go to this drop-in center called the Door. It eventually got renamed to the Drop Zone. Very cool place for young people to hang out and just get to, know other people. The Foundry reminded me of that, and growing up, and how that really helped me find my place in the community and meet people and get to know others. So the Foundry, it was a no-brainer. When we started the Flannel Contract, we got to the first winter, and my birthday falls just before Christmas, and I wanted to put on a really big show. And I'll let it slip here on camera, a little bit of a secret. It was slightly selfish that I thought, how can I get everyone to throw me a really big birthday party? And I thought, we're going to make the birthday party a fundraiser. So it's not really for me. It's for the community. But we get a huge party on my birthday, and it's not for me at all, but I get to,
Party on my birthday.
party on my birthday. And when I pitched this idea to the lads about doing a fundraiser, there was absolutely no hesitation. The Flannel Contract was behind me 100%. Incredibly helpful with canvassing the community to get support and donations for the event, and it's just been incredible to be doing this with the guys.
To touch base on a question that we asked Kynan, what has been your personal biggest struggle with being a musician or with the flannel?
It's kind of funny because I feel like Kynan had a different answer than I'm going to give, and then the two of you later ended up talking about exactly what I'm going to say, and it's the interpersonal relationships, managing the dynamic of 3 incredibly passionate individuals. We all care so much about this project and have a way we want to see it go, and we've all got different backgrounds, different schedules, different temperaments, different times where we're high and low, and to bring all of that together can be tumultuous. Trying to balance everything and not let that affect the personal relationships between me and these guys, because over the years I've grown incredibly close with them, and it would be such a shame for a difference in opinion musically to tear all that apart. So the biggest challenge is absolutely just working together and putting yourself aside a little bit, because we've all got such strong feelings about how we want it to go and what it should be looking like. And yeah, it can be difficult. Absolutely.
Do you guys have one person who makes the final decision? Like if you all can't agree, just one person says, okay, this is how it's going?
No, it's why we've got an odd number.
That's funny.
We've thought about adding another guitar player. Rhythm lets me, focus more on the singing, or we've thought about bringing singers in. But the dynamic of just the three of us means there's almost never a split decision of 2 and 2. So it is usually 2 against 1, and even that we try to avoid and prefer to move forward unanimously. But the odd number certainly helps, that we do not have a clear leader. We do not have somebody who gets a final say. It's not my project because I'm, the guitar player front man. It's you'll watch a show and see Kynan sing as much as I do, with his own kind of personality and presence. So there's no clear frontman, I wouldn't say, in the Flannel Contract. There's no clear band leader. It is a very collaborative, very unanimous. We don't like to, have any sort of hierarchy.
No, I like that. You fall into place. You know where your place is, kind of, and there is no leader. You know when you need to step up and when you need to step down.
We've all learned to read each other very well, and having those strong opinions is incredibly helpful, because you're never guessing where he's at. He'll tell you, and we move from there.
Yeah.
And it's not personal, it's not petty.
No.
It's great, because it gives you this firm sense, and it's great in a drummer to
He's
have
very
that
logic.
sense of confidence, and that, because he's passionate about it, and when that drummer can really sit back there and communicate and drive, it makes everything else so much easier.
Yeah, and he's very passionate about what he does, and if he loves something, that's when his passion really shines. And I'm the same way. Like if I'm passionate about something, it may come off as like aggressive, or like I may be sounding like I'm being mean, but it's like I'm just stoked on what's happening. You know what I mean? So it's kind of hard to like.
So excited about this.
Yeah, and I feel like bands always have that, and that was one thing that I loved about Harley, was like watching that excitement on his face the moment like he's like, because then he just drives you to do it. And,
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And you three have that on stage where it's just going like this.
Yeah.
It's just constant energy flow shift, and then at the end it's like big hug.
Gotta do the hug.
Yeah.
Never missed a hug, I don't think. And one of the things that I hate about playing live is not being able to see Harley, because he's sitting behind us. Here in the basement when we're practicing, I get to see locking eyes with both Kynan and Harley, and out of the corner of my eye, if I'm not paying attention, Harley will do a little fill that gets him all excited, and you just see the smile come across his face, and we'll lock eyes, and does that kick the song up into a whole nother level. And you talk about how we pass the energy around on stage, and it's a little bit hard doing that backwards pass sometimes, but you just got to trust that he's back there doing his thing, and you feel it.
Half the time you guys are so focused on the crowd and don't even realize that Harley's standing up and just going hard. That's the best part about him, is you never know what he's doing.
I'll see videos later. People have recorded footage. They're like, hey, check out this song. I'm like, what was Harley doing back there?
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was up on the stool.
Yeah, no, that's the thing I loved about him. I don't remember where he picked that up. I want to say it was like Arcade Fire or something along the lines when they were coming out, one of those bands.
Possibly Arcade Fire.
Monotonics. I guarantee if you ask him, he's going to say the Monotonics. They're an Israeli band that he introduced me to. and the drummer will take his drum kit and set it on the crowd in the festivals, and then he climbs up on
And
top
then he
and starts
surfs
playing.
around it.
And I
Yeah.
remember Harley introduced me to them, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are amazing. Crazy live.
I hear a lot of Taylor Hawkins in his drumming as well. I think the Foo
Yep.
Fighters were a big inspiration. The theatrics standing up while he plays, Taylor Hawkins used to do that all the
Yep.
time with the Foo Fighters, and yeah, I think there was some inspiration there. At least that's what I hear.
He also had one of the best drum teachers of all time. Steve McPhee, shout out to Steve McPhee. He is one of Canada's top drummers, and he hides in Penticton. You wouldn't even realize who he is if you saw him in person. You'd be like, that's one of Canada's best drummers? Dude is insane and so humble, and just, I can imagine learning drums from him would give you such a passion for drums, like in a different sense than, it's like learning from Taylor, right? Like that passion transcending through your teacher to you is kind of a cool thing. But you can definitely see that Harley all over throughout the years has always kept that, I don't know what it is, the happiness in his playing, which is something that I miss having in a band almost.
It approaches the instrument with a very childlike wonder.
Yeah.
It's always about exploration with him. He's trying to serve the song past anything else, coming up with incredibly unique drum patterns. It's hardly ever just a 4/4 rock pattern. He's listening and pushing the boundaries all the time.
Yeah, it's cool to see you guys, how far you've progressed realistically. And I think that it'd be really hard to add another member. They would have to be the perfect person.
It would have to fit just right, and
Yeah,
we're a weird
really
puzzle to slide into.
Yeah, because you three work so well together. Like, I couldn't actually picture trying to find someone who would match the Flannel's energy. Like, yeah.
As
no.
we've been in the studio, if you watch Kynan's video, you'll hear a lot talking about our producer who's been putting together the album, our first album, and I think Easton would fit in the contract pretty well. He's not been able to help himself from adding little bits to every song. We're listening back to the tracks, the masters that he's sending us, and I'll get to a part like, I don't remember playing that. I think Easton added another guitar part. And then he adds little like harmonic leads here and there, and he's adding keys to the background of some of the songs, and he's been able to find areas here and there where the band could use a little bit of extra instrumentation, and it's been really fun to see where he thinks little flourishes and extra bits can come in. And like I said before, I don't think we're ever going up to a 4-piece,
Right.
but it is fun to think about what it would look like and how that might come out. So if you listen to the recordings, the Spotify tracks, you will hear little bits of our 3.5 member, the producer there.
I love it. That's awesome. So with the 3.5 member, that's awesome. With Flannel Contract, and you guys are currently recording your album. What's been your hardest part in recording? Have you found any aspects very challenging?
Oh, it's very challenging, especially with how long we've been doing these songs live, how many shows we've done up to this point, that the songs have more or less all fallen into a place, but at the same time evolve. You know, the song feels different depending on the night, how we're feeling, how the crowd's feeling, the other bands that we're playing with. We'll try to crank up songs or tune them down. Having these songs unrecorded allows us a lot more freedom with them. And then going into the studio and saying, okay, but what's it going to sound like on Spotify forever from now on? That's really putting you in this place of okay, the song can't be different every time anymore. What does this song need to be specifically? So going into that, a lot of the songs needed a little bit of rearrangement. A lot of the songs needed a little bit of just some sort of fine tunings to really talk about, okay, this song starts differently every night. what do we want to do on the album? So a lot of that stuff that needed to get worked out was a bit of a challenge, because you don't know the context the song's going to be in on the other side. But then as well, the guitar solos have been a huge headache for me. Of a lot of the guitar solos, for half the songs, I've gotten something sort of written out, planned in my mind. I've got a map of notes I want to hit, riffs that I want to get in the solo. But some of the solos are very freeform, improvised every night, always changing. So trying to figure out as well what they needed to be to best serve the song in a general context rather than a relative context was a bit of a nightmare. And then hearing myself play over and over again and listening back to take after take after take and trying to decide which ones I liked most. And you just start to hyper focus on the things that you don't love about your playing. And I started to really hyper focus on the things that made me feel bad about myself as a musician. And so it was a very big mental hurdle to overcome with the recordings and having to sit down and listen to yourself and having to focus on the things that maybe don't love about yourself. It was tough, and to not sort of spiral in that was a big challenge. And once you record it, you got to remember, okay, there's no crowd cheering, there's no band behind me who's going to high five me for that solo. Like, you got to remember that in the studio, it's a very different context, and it's going to feel very dry and sterile at first. And it doesn't mean the song's different than it is when you play it live. It doesn't mean it's not as good, but it's a very different feeling.
It is. It's very. This is why music was recorded the way it was back in the day, and that's why music sounds different today. Is they would do one take with the whole band, and you would get that genuine magic.
They say it takes something like 10,000 hours to really master something, and I think the bit of that is, yes, it's an intimidatingly large number to begin with, but a lot of people forget the fact that there's more to it than any particular thing. Yeah. You can put 10 hours into playing the guitar and master the heck out of it, but if you've never played with another musician before, that 10,000 hour counter is still at zero. The touring, the management, the logistics, the interpersonal connections, all of these things need that 10,000 hours before you've got a chance of really standing out from the crowd. And 10 years before you really start to meld with the guys you're working with, 10 years before you really start to understand all of the nuances about making records and playing shows. Because it sounds so simple at first, you know, play a few chords with a few guys, but as you start to get into things, there's a whole lot more going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. If there was any advice that you could give aspiring musicians besides what you just said, because that was pretty hammer on the nail there, what would it be?
Do it now. You got to get started. The time is slipping away faster than you can possibly imagine. The speed at which things happen in this industry, in this world, in this game is mind-boggling, you know? I'm sure that during this conversation, an unbelievable amount of records have been released. An uncountable number of new songs have just hit Spotify. And if you're not trying to keep up with what's going on, it will leave you behind, and you're going to end up down the road looking back at what you've wanted to accomplish and just never got around to. So you got to get started while you can, and just the earlier you start with it, the more you get to do, and it's worth doing.
Awesome. I want to thank you for having us, and I really appreciate this conversation.
Come back anytime. You're always welcome in my basement,
Thanks,
Rob.
Freddie. We'll see you guys next time.